Hello and welcome to rounds 15 and 16 of the BSR GT Sprint Cup here on BSR TV live on YouTube. I'm Marcus Narris, thanks for joining us. We've got two probably very exciting races in store tonight. We've got two 25-minute races in the GT Sprint Cup coming from the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. For those of you that are Formula 1 fans, you'll obviously recognise this from a couple of weeks ago when it all went horribly wrong for Mercedes and went reasonably well for everyone else. I doubt we'll see too many mechanical issues here tonight, but what we almost certainly will see is some side-by-side door-banging action. For those that know this circuit, they'll know that it's a circuit of very, very long straights that are punctuated by very big stops and very slow chicanes, and for regular viewers of the championship, they'll know that that generally means there's a little bit of banging and boring in the BSR TV GT Sprint Cup series, and I'm sure that's going to continue tonight. So we've got just about 4.5 minutes to go until the start of this first race. For those that aren't familiar with the format, we run two 25-minute sprint races. The second race is usually slightly more interesting than the first insofar as we reverse the first 20 grid positions for the second race. So if you finish in 20th place in race 1, you start on pole position in race 2. If you finish 19th, you start second, and so on and so forth. What that has meant, it's led to some very exciting racing, certainly in race 2, and it's really spread the race wins about. The championship is only contains 3 drivers that have managed to win more than one race, and nobody's won more than 2 races so far this season, and the race wins have really been spread around. So speaking of the championship table, we'll have a quick look at the way things stand. It's got very, very close after last week's fun and games at Alton Park. Juan Jose Sanchez for Playful Bet Overgaming leads the way. Sanchez is one of the 3 drivers who's won 2 races this season. He leads the championship with 340 points, but is very, very closely pursued by his teammate Ruben Velasco. Velasco also of Playful Bet Overgaming. He's only 3 points behind Juan Jose Sanchez, and he'll certainly be looking to take advantage of any opportunities he can between now and the end of the season as we move into the latter stages of this season, to close that gap and try and make a bid for the championship as the number of races we have winds down. In third place is Michael Stephen for Team Extreme. He finds himself a further 14 points behind the leader. He's 11 points behind Ruben Velasco. Carlos Foss, the third Playful Bet Overgaming driver, is in 4th place. There's quite a gap between 3rd and 4th that has opened up. Carlos Foss finds himself 68 points behind the leader Juan Jose Sanchez, and 54 points behind Michael Stephen in 3rd place, so he's really going to struggle to make those places up. 5th place is the ever dependable Linus Bostrom. Linus, for those of you who have been watching the championship regularly, will know drove the majority of the season so far with one arm, having suffered a broken arm earlier in the season. Linus has had to configure his steering wheel and the buttons on his wheel so he can drive one-handed. So for him to be in 5th place in the championship this late into the season is a hell of an achievement. And he finds himself only 2 points behind Carlos Foss in 4th place. So maybe the championship win is beyond Linus and the guys behind him. But certainly the opportunity is there for Linus to move up to challenge 4th place and certainly 3rd place, depending on what happens to Michael Stephen, who we've seen have a few incidents here and there. In 6th place is Fabio Gonzalez. In 7th place is John Carlo Jaraquai for Playful Bet Overgaming. 8th place is Ashley Sutton. Ashley Sutton took a race win last week at Alton Park, and by virtue of that became the 3rd driver to win multiple rounds of the championship. Unfortunately for Ashley, he doesn't finish many races. He tends to either win or wreck. Not always his fault, it has to be said. He does get caught up in some incidents that certainly aren't completely down to him, but he'll be looking for a bit more consistency as we run into the closing stage of the season. Certainly if he'd had a little bit more luck and been a little bit more consistent, Ashley would have been there or thereabouts at the top of the championship. 9th place is Jose Vergara for Playful Bet Overgaming. And 10th place, rounding out the top 10, is Sylvain Pomerade. Sylvain, who's missed a few rounds this season, but he rounds out the top 10 and is a massive 130 points behind the guys in front. So it's getting quite spread out in the championship, except for at the top, fortunately, where things are very close, and any serious incidents tonight for any of the championship leaders could really see a big mix-up. So the guys have just about a minute to go before the start of the race. As I said, we'll be running two 25-minute sprint races here this evening. What we've seen so far this season is very little patience from the guys. These are sprint races in name, and they're certainly sprint races in the way they go about doing them. It's kind of hell for leather from the first lap, and the race is getting closer and closer and closer as the season progresses. Helping us with that, there's been a balance of performance for the BMW Z4 GT3s, who up until very, very recently have been pretty much the car to be in. They've been running away with everything, but the series organisers took the view that that one wasn't necessarily acceptable in the way things should be. Nobody wanted to see a field full of just BMW Z4s. And also, you know, it wasn't quite right in a level GT series like this one that there was one car with superior performance. So 35 kilograms of ballast was added to those BMW Z4 GT3s a couple of rounds ago, and we've really seen a real levelling off of performance. It's done exactly what it was intended to do, and now all three cars are just about as competitive as each other. Especially competitive here at Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve is the McLarens. For those who have driven these cars in iRacing, these GT3 cars, will know that the McLarens are very, very, very strong around here. They have great top-line speed, tend not to take corners particularly well, certainly not as sticky as the BMWs, and that, by virtue of that, on the tighter, twistier circuits, it tends to be the case that the BMWs still hold sway. But we've got a couple of BMWs up front tonight, which is really, really nice to see, it has to be said. So I'll quickly, as the guys form up, I'll quickly run through the grid for you. On pole position is Juan Jose Sanchez, the championship leader, who qualified with a 1:35.008. Alongside him on the grid is Marcus Hamilton. Marcus driving McLaren MP412, which is great to see. It's great to see one of those MP4s on the front of the grid. Behind him in third place is Vincente Gascon-Marti. Fourth place is Ruben Velasco. Fifth is Michael Stephen. Sixth, Noel Lundberg. Jose Vergara is in seventh place, and Simon Field is in eighth place. All those drivers in the top eight covered by less than a second, so it's certainly very, very close. A little bit of news to note is Ashley Sutton tonight starts from the back of the grid after accruing penalty points for issues at Alton Park. So Ashley was very, very quick in warm-up, and he was running low 1:35, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do in the number 10 car from 27th place on the grid. So the cars are rolling now. They're making their way very, very slowly down this long, long back straight here at Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve. For those that know the circuit will know that this represents one of the best overtaking opportunities on the circuit as they flick through this chicane and past what has been lovingly called the Wall of Champions, and away we go. Everyone's off. Velasco drops the pedal very, very hard, very, very early, and leads everyone away. It's pretty much single file as they went through the start there. It's a bit of a crazy start here for a rolling start, and you need to be single file, and the result of that is you tend to get very, very clean getaway, and everyone gets through reasonably safely. I'm looking back through the field, and I can't see any significant issues so far, to be honest with you, but as we all know, that could change at any moment. So as we look through the halfway through this first lap, Juan Jose Sanchez leads Marcus Hamilton away. So it's as you were on the grid. Ruben Velasco has managed to jump Vincente Gascon-Marti. Velasco started in fourth place and is up to third place. So Marcus Hamilton in that number 4 McLaren finds himself in a playful bet over gaming sandwich. The playful bet cars, the white cars with the blue and white Corsair livery, is very, very easy to identify. So he's going to be coming under pressure, certainly from Velasco, who now sits in third place. As I say, Gascon-Marti dropped a spot and is now running in fourth place. Behind him is Michael Stephen, and Michael Stephen is being pursued by yet another playful bet over gaming machine in the shape of Jose Vergara. So as they go around the bottom hairpin and onto the long, long back straight again, it looks like pretty much everybody has got through this first lap cleanly, which is quite unusual for the BSR TV GT Sprint Cup, believe me, but certainly everybody seems to be behaving themselves. But this run down into the chicane represents the first real overtaking opportunity, and if we have a look back up front, it's certainly not an opportunity anyone was able to take advantage of, as the leaders end the first lap and start lap 2 coming into the very, very tight left-hander and then the long sweeping right-hander. It's very, very tempting to get the throttle, get on the throttle too early, get the power down far too soon there and spin it round. It's quite easy to do, and something that these guys would definitely want to avoid. So as we go through this first lap, the bit of a gap has opened up between the four drivers at the top. Juan Jose Sanchez now leads by 7/10 of a second, and Marcus Hamilton has about the same gap, in fact a little bit more, about a second, as they cross the line between him and Ruben Velasco. But looking at it on the circuit, Velasco is very much closer than that visibly, and as they make their way down the middle straight into the third of the four chicanes on the circuit, it looks very much to me like Ruben Velasco is all getting very close indeed to Marcus Hamilton. I don't think it's quite fair to say that he's monstering him or is all over the back of him, but he's certainly a lot closer than the second gap that was in place when they crossed the start-finish line at the end of the first lap. Then there's a bit of a gap. It looks to me to be, crikey, that's got to be a good second and a half, 2 seconds now back to Vincente Gaston Marti, and it looks like he's almost certainly holding up the drivers behind him. Michael Stephen in the 305 car is bottled up fairly tightly behind him, and indeed Gaston Marti is leading a train of 5 cars as he runs a slightly slower pace than those around him. Maybe it's taken him a while to get going. He was quick in qualifying, so there's certainly no reason why he should be slower than anybody else, but he certainly seems to have a train of cars behind him, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. As up in second place, Ruben Velasco is having a look left and right around Marcus Hamilton as they come into turn 1, left into turn 1 and then round into that long right-hander, as I said. Velasco very, very, very close to the back of Marcus Hamilton, and certainly on the run down that start-finish straight, he was jinking left and right trying to find a space. Very, very difficult to pass here. Tricky circuit to pass on. The only real opportunity you have without causing yourself and the other drivers a problem are down into the hairpin before you run onto the back straight. And again, at the end of that back straight, there's a good opportunity to outbrake somebody and try and go down the inside of them into that final chicane. The problem you have there, of course, is it's very difficult to get the car squared up again and not straight line that chicane, as we saw Nico Rosberg do in the Formula 1 Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago. But certainly this is where the main battle for the top 3 is, between second and third. Velasco's been very quick on that back straight, and as we go into the tight hairpin that leads onto this long back straight, he's as close as he's been certainly for the first 2 laps of this race. And the draft plays a significant part in this race. If you can get tucked up behind the car in front, these big GT cars do punch a big hole in the air, so there's certainly a noticeable draft. But it looks like the legs on that McLaren MP4 12C GT3, as we mentioned in the preamble before the race, that car very quick in a straight line. As I say that, Hamilton hammers the inside curb on the second part of that chicane, and it's really slowed him down. He was up on 2 wheels for a second there, and Ruben Velasco now is tapped right behind him, but can't find a way past as they go back into turn 1. So as I was saying, that McLaren MP4 12C GT3 is incredibly quick in a straight line, and certainly seems to have the legs on the BMW in this instance. Ruben Velasco got a very good exit from that final hairpin as they exited it, but couldn't get anything anywhere close to Marcus Hamilton, even despite having the benefit of that draft. So that McLaren really quick in a straight line, and that's going to present an issue for Velasco and anyone else wanting to pass one of these McLarens tonight. They're really going to have to pick their spot carefully. So looking back down through the field, 4th place is still Gaston Marti, and he really is the cork in the bottle now. He's got Michael Stephen, Jose Vergara, Noel Lundberg and Simon Field and Ivan Fernandez tucked up right behind him. He really is holding those guys up now. He's certainly not running the pace we saw him run in qualifying. He's yet to put a lap in the race under 1:36. His quickest lap was lap 2, which is a 1:36.1, and as we saw, his time for third position on the grid was a 1:35.5. So Gaston Marti's running 6 or 7 tenths of a second slower than the pace he was running in qualifying, and that's really showing as just behind him the cars are getting very close together, and indeed that leads to an opportunity for Jose Vergara to look up the inside of Noel Lundberg, and indeed he gets it done, bounces across that inside curve, manages to avoid the wall of champions there, and gets that move done. So as we said, that's one of the 2 real good overtaking places on the circuit, and Jose Vergara there taking full advantage of a great drive he got on Noel Lundberg in front of him, and he snatches 6th place away from Lundberg. Meanwhile, up front, things have stabilised a little bit by the looks of it. Hamilton is managing to pull away a little bit from Ruben Velasco. I haven't seen if Velasco had an issue, and the gap certainly doesn't appear to be big enough that you know, there was apparently something gone wrong. It doesn't seem like he's dropped off very far, but it looks like Hamilton's getting to grips more and more with that McLaren, which, as we said, can be very squirrely through the corners. And indeed, Marcus Hamilton on that last lap set the fastest lap of the race. He's the only driver so far tonight to dip into the 134s. So that gap has been built up by Marcus Hamilton's great work. That fourth lap he ran a 134.96 as opposed to a 135.3 of Juan Jose Sanchez in front of him, and a 135.5 of Ruben Velasco behind him. So certainly the man on the move at the moment is Marcus Hamilton. He's getting some heat in those tyres, and he's really taking advantage of the straight line speed of that McLaren. As he gets more and more into this race, and that car, he gets more comfortable with the car he's got underneath him. So certainly something to keep an eye on. He's running a much quicker pace than the leaders. He crossed the start-finish line at the beginning of this fifth lap, 1.1 seconds behind Juan Jose Sanchez. And as they come up to the start-finish line now to begin lap 6, that gap has dropped by 0.2 of a second. So Hamilton certainly reeling Juan Jose Sanchez in and running some incredibly fast laps. Again, couldn't quite match his pace for lap 4 with a 134.9, but that fifth lap was a 135.0. So very, very quick laps coming from Marcus Hamilton in that McLaren in second place. So we'll keep an eye on that one as the race progresses. Meanwhile, something has happened on the last lap to Vincente Gascon-Marti. He finds himself down in 7th position. He dropped out of that 4th position that he was holding, and he's dropped a good 15 seconds back from the leaders now. So I didn't quite see what happened to him. I'll have a look and see if I can work out where it went wrong for him. But it looks like there was contact going into the chicane at the end of that 5th lap, and it looks like Ivan Fernandez and Cyril Thomas got together going into that chicane, into the hairpin, sorry, and it looks like it held Gascon-Marti up. So it's certainly changed around a little bit in the top 10 over the last couple of laps. So I'll give you a rundown off the top 10 as it stands with all those changes. Still leading is the number 17 car, the Playful Bet overgaming machine of Juan Jose Sanchez, who crosses the finish line now to start his 7th lap and sees his lead slashed to just 0.6 of a second. Marcus Hamilton there took another 3.5 of a second out of him on that lap. A fantastic performance from Hamilton, who's turning in quick lap after quick lap after quick lap, and it'll be interesting to see how long Juan Jose Sanchez can hang on to that race lead. As I said, Marcus Hamilton is 2nd and hunting down our race leader. Ruben Velasco is 3rd and now dropping back. He's 2.6 seconds behind 2nd place. Ruben Velasco running 3rd place, 3.1 seconds behind the leader. He's ahead of Jose Vergara, his teammate, so there's a bit of a Playful Bet overgaming, I won't say train, because there's quite a gap between those two guys. Velasco in 3rd place is 3 seconds off the lead, and Vergara in 4th is 9 seconds off the lead, almost certainly as a result of the avoiding action all of these drivers had to take to avoid the incident there that cost Vincente Gascon-Marti a few spots. In 5th place is Michael Stephen, and 6th is Noel Lundberg. Then there's another 7-second gap back to Gascon-Marti, who we just spoke about, in 7th place, and he's literally just ahead of Cyril Thomas. Those two guys separated by less than 0.2 of a second last lap. Ben Gregory is running a very, very strong 9th place. It's a great run so far for Gregory. He's the 2nd of the McLarens in the top 10. Not traditionally a top 10 driver, he won't mind me saying that, by virtue of the fact he runs the McLaren. But right behind him, rounding out the top 10, is Dario Bocanegra in the number 787 BMW Z4 GT3. So again, as we look up front, again, Marcus Hamilton continues his continued, I say, I'll put the cursor, the commentator on him, continued his good run at the end of this 7th lap, coming into the beginning of the 8th lap, which they're on now. Hamilton had got that lead down to just 0.3 of a second. He consistently taking 0.3 of a second every lap out of Juan Jose Sanchez in front of him. But as I say that, going into turn 1, the braking zone for turn 1 for this beginning of this 8 lap, Hamilton got it horribly wrong and had to straight line the chicane there, and will certainly have picked up a slowdown penalty, which it looks like he's served, and he's back on his bike again, he's back on his way, but he finds himself now down in 3rd place. Velasco managed to jump him through all of that, so Marcus Hamilton probably trying a little bit too hard, and going into, as I say, the braking zone for turn 1 on this 8th lap, he just outbraked himself and had to go straight on. So I'll be interested to see what the gap looks like in terms of time, but in terms of positions on the road, he's dropped back quite a way, I'd say. He's certainly sitting behind Ruben Velasco. Velasco was running 3.5 seconds behind the leaders at the start of that last lap, and he's probably 2 or 3 seconds further back, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's dropped 6 or 7 seconds back from the lead. We'll have a look at what the timing screen says when these guys cross the start finish line, but as it stands now, it's Sanchez in 1st position, 2nd place now is Ruben Velasco, and 3rd place is Marcus Hamilton, and it's not, the damage isn't as bad as I thought for Hamilton. He's only 4.7 seconds behind Juan Jose Sanchez in the lead, and with just under 12 minutes, we've just crossed the 12-minute barrier, so roughly half this race remaining, 45% of the race remaining. The chance is still there for Marcus Hamilton to recover from that error, and certainly I think 2nd place is reasonable in terms of race pace. He's lapping significantly quicker than Velasco in front of him. As we've said, Hamilton's fastest lap of the race is a 1:34.9. The best that Velasco has been able to manage is a 1:35.3, but that was very, very early in the race. The last 3 laps for Ruben Velasco have all been slower than 1:35.5, so there's a couple in there, you know, in the 1:35.7s and 1:35.8, so Hamilton certainly has the pace on Velasco, and as we say that, you can see the gap is visibly closing as they go into this tight, long right-hand hairpin and get the power down for this long back straight, and this is where we'll see the advantage of that, the straight line speed of that McLaren MP412C GT3, and he's really right on the tail of the playful bet overgaming machine of Ruben Velasco in front of him. I don't think he's going to be in a position to do anything as they go into the chicane this time around. He's a bit far back, and indeed discretion proves to be the better part of valour, but as they both bump across the curbs there, the gap at the finish line, which was 1.3 seconds going into this lap, has now been reduced to 0.4 of a second. So Marcus Hamilton looks to be running somewhere in the region of 0.9 of a second quicker than Ruben Velasco, and indeed Velasco's last lap was a 1:35.738. Marcus Hamilton has obviously got the red mist on, because again he sets another fastest lap of the race with a 1:34.8. And just to put that into context, our qualifying lap for this race was a 1:35.008. So Hamilton at the moment running quicker halfway through the race, and having scrubbed some of the life out of the tyres on that McLaren, running quicker than Juan Jose Sanchez could manage on his qualifying lap. So certainly I think it's only a matter of time before Ruben Velasco gets gobbled up by Marcus Hamilton and the number 4 McLaren. That said, Velasco will be doing everything he can to do a job for his team and provide a little bit of coverage for race leader Juan Jose Sanchez. Sanchez obviously looking to pull away at the top of the championship, and as I say that, they're side by side coming into the hairpin, but he's never going to make it work on the outside there. But what it does give him, it gives him the cut back. He's able to get on the power a lot quicker coming out of that tight hairpin, and as they run now up this long back straight, he's literally tucked under the rear wing of that playful bet overgaming BMW Z4 GT3 in front of him, and Velasco sees him coming, takes a very tight defensive line to the inside. Hamilton sweeps to the outside. It's going to be very tight for Velasco to get through this chicane, and as he does, he's very slow on exit, leaves himself vulnerable. Hamilton is able to pull to the inside, and as they run down the start finish straight and cross the start finish line now, they are separated by less than 0.02 of a second, but Hamilton crucially has the inside line into turn 1 and is able to put that McLaren in front of the number 3 machine of Ruben Velasco in that BMW Z4 GT3, and gets the move done. He's able to make it stick, and now I'll be interested to see how close he can get to Juan Jose Sanchez up front. That battle with Velasco has cost him some time, so we'll keep an eye on that. He's certain now to drive away from Velasco, all due respect to the playful bet overgaming driver, but Hamilton has been consistently quicker throughout this race, so we'll certainly keep an eye on that and see what's going on. Meanwhile, if we have a look at the other McLaren in the top 10, the number 21 machine of Benjamin Gregory, he's being hunted down by Jose Almeida behind him. That's the closest other battle in the top 10. There's a battle going on for 5th and 6th place. They being Ebbingham flying backs and forwards, Michael Stephen and Noel Lumberg. But to be fair, they seem very much to be holding station. They're not really getting any closer or any further apart. They are running quite close. There's a cluster of 3 cars for 4th, 5th and 6th place. Jose Vergara, Michael Stephen and Noel Lumberg running quite close to get. But in fairness, those guys it's been pretty static. In terms of gap, it's not really changing, but we'll certainly keep an eye on that as we move towards the end of the race and desperation starts to set in. Who knows what could happen. So there are small battles happening all throughout the field, one of which, if we look at Alton Park race winner Ashley Sutton in the number 10 machine, he's carrying a bit of damage at the front, and Ashley Sutton fans will realise that that's nothing new. Ashley Sutton's cars usually have a bit of damage on them, but he's chasing very, very hard behind Nick McCarron and Linus Brostrom. And as we say that, Nick McCarron looks up the inside of Linus Brostrom going into the chicane. Very late on the brakes. Can McCarron get it turned? Can he get it stopped? Yeah, excellent job by Nick McCarron. He's going to inevitably be slow coming out of that chicane, and Linus Brostrom behind him tries to pull out, but he finds that Ashley Sutton's really beat him to it, and they're nearly went 3 wide across the start finish line. A little bit rude there from Brostrom. He should have realised that Sutton had already pulled out to make that move, but Brostrom pulls out in front of Sutton. Sutton does the right thing and gets out of the gas, gets out of the way, and as we say that, Brostrom loses it. He just gets on the gas a little bit too quickly, gets on the outside wall, and there's nowhere to go there. He bounces off the inside wall, spears across the circuit, bounces off the outside wall, and that number 71 car of Linus Brostrom from the MovieGo team, it's looking very, very, very second hand. I'll go back, I'll have another look at that. I don't think that there was any contact or any funny business. It just looks to me, as we said earlier on, going through that turn 2, the temptation is to get on the throttle far too quickly before you've got the car straightened up, and that's exactly what Brostrom's done. He doesn't get the car straightened up, he gets on the power too quickly and it spits him across the circuit, and that is a very, very bent looking BMW Z4 GT3 that is slowly crabbing its way back to the pits. So in terms of that battle, it now means that Nick McCarron leads the train of cars, and as we say that, Ashley Sutton has a little look down the inside of McCarron. These 3 drivers very, very close, so Nick McCarron, Ashley Sutton and Stephen Burke. Stephen Burke, the race 2 winner from Alton Park. Burke's only been with us for about half a season, but he's proved himself to be a very, very consistent driver, taking advantage of the reverse grid system we have in this championship to take the 2nd race win last week at Alton Park, and he's having a good look up the inside of Ashley Sutton there as they go through the chicane and past the wall of champions, down the start-finish straight to cross the start-finish line. Those 3 guys running nose to tail, and this is certainly the most intense battle in the race, and the fact that it's a battle for the 11th, 12th and 13th place doesn't mean anything to these guys. They'll be fighting as hard as they possibly can do to get every advantage, to try and take a good grid spot for race 2. All 3 of these guys are pretty quick guys, to be fair. Sutton being a multiple race winner, and as I say, Burke being very consistent, recent race winner. If these guys are in and around the top 7 or 8 positions for the start of race 2, as I say that, Burke runs wide and leaves a big black streak down the side of the wall. I think he's just about managed to get away with that one. It doesn't look to me like that number 51 machine of Stephen Burke is particularly damaged, but he certainly ran down the outside of the wall there, and as Ashley Sutton and gets very close to Nick McCarron as these 3 guys make their way past the parked and prostrate car of, and as I say that, Sutton's gone. Sutton's disappeared. Looks like we've had a disqualification there. Sutton's run wide coming out of that 2nd chicane, and for those guys who are familiar with this race series, they'll know that we have an incident limit in this race series to prevent people being over robust, and Sutton's been hit by Burke from behind. In fairness, it looked to me like a wee bit of a blocking move from Ashley Sutton. Stephen Burke certainly was perfectly entitled there to pull out and have a look down the inside of Sutton, and as he did so, Sutton moved to the left as well. There was inevitable contact, and contact means penalty points, and unfortunately it looks like Ashley Sutton's racked up a few penalty points. We said his car was looking a bit bent and battered a little bit second hand, and it looks like he's been disqualified from that first race. So he will plummet down the order now, unfortunately. He's now shown as running in 15th place, but that's surely only going to get worse for him. So, a little over 3 minutes remaining of this race. Let's have a look how things are going back up front. Juan Jose Sanchez continues on his reasonably merry way. He's been lapping very, very consistently, although not particularly quickly. His last 3 laps have all been in and around 1:35.5 in that kind of bracket. Behind him, Marcus Hamilton has been doing absolutely everything he could do to close that gap. His last 2 laps have been 1:35.1s. To go with that 9th lap of the race, the fastest lap, 1:34.8. And again, as we say that, Marcus Hamilton puts in another 1:35.0 as opposed to a 1:35.5. So he's definitely getting closer and closer and closer, but he's now running 3 and a bit seconds, just slightly over 3 seconds as the timing screen updates from the end of the last lap. But unfortunately, outbraking himself going into turn 1 as he unfortunately did back on lap 7. It looks like that's cost him big time. He had to take the shortcut across the grass to avoid hitting the wall. And obviously, as those regulars in iRacing will know, that if you cut a corner, the system automatically gives you a slowdown penalty. It takes some time away from you to negate any time you may have gained, and it looks like that's cost Marcus Hamilton very, very dearly. He's certainly been by some comfortable distance the fastest driver in this race. There's no disputing it. His fastest lap of the race has been almost 0.5 of a second, just over half a second quicker than the fastest lap of Velasco behind him, and almost exactly the same distance quicker than the leader, Juan Jose Sanchez, in front of him, whose fastest lap has been a 1:35.2. So Hamilton much the quicker in the top 3 throughout this race, but that one mistake has cost him dearly, and it doesn't look like he's going to get any closer. There's these guys come to cross the finish line again to end the 15th lap. There is now only 1 minute and 1 second on the clock, so this will certainly be the last lap of the race. For those not familiar, these are timed races. They run 25 minutes, so the first time the leader crosses the start-finish line after that 25 minutes has expired, that will be the checkered flag. With an average lap time around this place being somewhere in the order of 1 minute 35 seconds, obviously crossing the start-finish line with 1 minute and 1 second left to start this lap means that this will obviously be the final lap of the race, and Hamilton is trying his best. He's now only 2.7 seconds behind leader Juan Jose Sanchez, but it looks to me like Sanchez has got this sewn up, and Marcus Hamilton will be ruining that mistake. It's really cost him dearly, as Juan Jose Sanchez now has the luxury of a slight gap. He's certainly not pushing very, very hard through those chicanes, not taking all of the available runoff up against that wall outside him, so he looks like he's managing the gap as we come to the closing stages of this last lap, and he's really only got 2 corners to go. Negotiates the first one of them, the long, slow right-hand hairpin onto the back straight, and now it's just a question of mash the throttle and make sure you stay out of trouble. We've got lap traffic in front of him in the shape of Willem Pinar, but Pinar's way up the road there in 17th place, so I don't think he's going to be a problem as Sanchez makes his way into the braking zone for the final chicane for what will be the final time. No problems there, quite slow out of the chicane, but he knows what he's got to do. Runs down the start finish lane for the final time to take the race win. So your winner is Juan Jose Sanchez by a gap of what turned out to be just 2.2 seconds ultimately. Marcus Hamilton making up 2.5 seconds in that final 10 minutes of that race to take second place. Ahead of Ruben Velasco. Velasco ultimately finishing 7.9 seconds behind, and in the battle for 4th and 5th, Jose Vergara wins out by about 1.5 seconds from Noel Lundberg. So as we look back down the grid, Stephen Burke looks like he's going to get 11th place. While we were looking at the leaders, he's got past Nick McCarron. So Burke, who had a very, very strong run, makes his way up into the final chicane, and it looks like he's going to take 11th place. So the battles that were taking place throughout this race, it looks like they've settled themselves. The next closest battle is Ellis Stevens and Willem Bernhard, who are fighting quite hard over 13th and 14th place, and Stevens gets the better of Bernhard there and takes that 13th place. Critically, classified at the moment, I'll keep an eye on this to see if this changes as other cars cross the line. I don't think it will, due to the way the traffic is worked out, and the car behind him being a lap down. But currently, Linus Brostrom, who we saw have that accident coming out of turn 2, is sat in the pits. He's not going anywhere, but it looks like Brostrom's going to take 20th place in this race, just ahead of Ashley Sutton, who we saw disqualified. So Sutton and Brostrom are qualified 19th and 20th in this race, and those two guys will form the front row, providing those positions hold, the front row of race 2. So that's two very, very quick guys. Brostrom, who came into this evening's round running 5th in the championship, and Sutton, who's running 8th in the championship but is a multiple race winner. It looks like they're going to be your front two, your front row for race 2. So fairly interesting. Be looking forward to race 2. So let's give you a full rundown of the final positions for this first race, round 15 of the BSR GT Sprint Cup. Juan Jose Sanchez for Playful Bet Overgaming in that number 17 BMW Z4 GT3 takes the win from Marcus Hamilton, who was incredibly fast, and I'll be keen to see what he can do in race 2. Velasco, also from Playful Bet Overgaming, takes 3rd place ahead of Jose Vergara. So 3 Playful Bet Overgaming machines in the top 4, and those guys continue their domination of this championship. Noel Lundberg managed to get the better of Michael Stephen and take 5th place. Stephen losing quite a lot of time on that last lap, so something's definitely happened there. Stephen classified in 6th place. Cyril Thomas finishes 7th ahead of Vincente Gascon Marti, who we saw having a very strong run at the start of that race, but he unfortunately dropped back. Ben Gregory takes what will be for him a very welcome top 10 position. Gregory is very, very consistent, and he'll be delighted that he's got a finish in the top 10 there. Jose Almeida rounds out the top 10 ahead of Stephen Burke in 11th. Nick McCarron finally took 12th place. Ellis Stevens held off Willem Barnard for 13th place. Barnard is classified 14th. And taking 15th place, Matthew Dalton. So interesting is that we get the final update of the timing screen. Indeed, 19th and 20th in that first race were Ashley Sutton and Linus Brostrom. So Brostrom will be starting on pole position for race 2, and Sutton will be starting alongside him from 2nd place. So it'll be interesting to see what happens between those two guys. Both very, very fast, both very aggressive racers. So certainly race 2 will be something to look forward to. Hopefully you'll join us for that second race. It will be coming up just after the end of this transmission. Stay here on YouTube, on BSR TV on YouTube. For race 2, which will be coming up very, very shortly. We've seen a very exciting race 1, and race 2 promises more of the same. So hopefully we'll see you in a few minutes for that second race for round 16 of the championship. Thanks very much.